Hello. I am streaming just with YouTube at the moment. So I've never done that before. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Wendy. How you going? Um, yeah, I usually stream with a service, not through YouTube, but Restream's been weird. I can't get like my normal setup. It's really strange. Um, yeah, and what else? Oh, I've never used YouTube, so I hope I can share what I. Oh yeah, I can share the stream. Yikes! Love having something new. Um, just checking everything out. Just checking it all out. All right, all right. How are we today? I'm okay. I'm going to work tomorrow. I'm excited. Because it's so everybody knows Australians usually dominate the pool. Val, let's not fight about it, okay, Val? Let's not, our friendship can't break up over like swimming. Anyway, hate swimming as a sport because I think it's boring. You're swimming in water. And Australians, hey Lisa, Australians learn to swim, basically before we can walk, you know. And that's why we're good at swimming. Anyway, we have swimming carnivals, which is like like you have a track meet, we have a swim meet for the entire school. And I liken it to everybody can dance, but we don't have a ballet like competition. Do you know? I think it's a really specific skill. That's my comparison. Also, it's always usually pretty hot. The first year I ever did one, I got sunburnt through my shirt, and I have been sunburnt many other times as well. A couple of years ago, oh, I remember I was so upset. So I've been on trigger warning, weight loss discussion here. Um, I when I was just first losing weight, I was probably 20 to 30 kilograms. I don't know how many that is in pounds. I'm really sorry. I think it's like 60, 70. Um, overweight, over what I am now. And we had to walk to the pool. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know I was going to have to walk. I didn't know how far it was. I was just like, I was upset. I was really upset. And so it's nice now not having that as much. What Minnie's doing over there, she has treats. So I gave everybody some treats so they would be quiet and have something to do while I'm streaming. Minnie thinks she's really sly over there hiding her treats. She does that in front of the other dogs sometimes, and they're like, as soon as she walks away, they just go and get it. You're not very smart, Minnie. Lucky you're pretty. Hey? Hey? I don't know if she's going to be preggo because she only connected once with the old Murphy. We're on the tail end, like, can't wait for that to finish. Okay, so we're back with Project 2025. If you are not aware of what that is, or you just come in here by accident. Oh, okay, cool. 44 pounds. Right. Oh, I thought, there you go. Thanks, Lisa. I thought it was more in pounds, but I mean, it doesn't matter. Uh, yeah, it is what it is. What was I going to say? Project 2025. So it is a transition plan for the next government. They say it not necessarily Trump, but it's Trump. It's being planned for Trump. uh, and when Trump says he's never heard of Project 25, which is what he called it because he thinks he's real sly. Um, It is. He does know about it because half of his staff are part of it, including one of the ladies that we're going to look at today. She's back. Her name is Bethany, and she's awful. She's really awful. Now, she was on this thing um called, like, she was USA ID'd, USAID, and she was for women's empowerment. And she wants women to be subservient to men. So great. And she complains about how career employees who are not partisan, that's going to be relevant in the first bunch of sentences that she talks about. Um, yeah, she is. Yeah, she just basically trashes them, and she sounds like she is just the most awful person to talk about. In fact, I found when I was doing some research, because she said some stuff, and I was doing some research. I found she was mentioned in this Australian woman's thesis for her doctorate or masters, and it was like, oh, Bethany, your reputation precedes you. Yeah. She looks very unhappy. She's got a constant anger arch in her eyes. And yeah, I think she's very dangerous. She's got to keep sweetness about her. All right, so I need to go and find. So this is basically Project 2025, like I said, was the transition plan. And what happened is there was a website. There's a 900-page document. I've gone through it with what they want with the FTC, and basically it's more about the antitrust stuff. It doesn't say anything about MLMs, but I know that what they want is less interference from government bodies. So I imagine that MLMs under Trump will be a lot less monitored. There will be, I think it'd be worse for MLMs, for the anti-MLM movement to have Project 2025. I was like, it was hurting my brain a little bit because I'm like, antitrust. I had to, like, I'd read a sentence and I have to look up a definition for the definition of the definition because it's very verbose and confusing on purpose. So, and basically this bunch of videos was leaked. These are training videos that they are putting out to employees who they've been employing because they don't want these career employees to be working for the government because they're not loyal to anyone. They're loyal to the Constitution, and FYI, so's the army, so's the armed forces and police. They're not loyal to a president. They're loyal to the Constitution. So they would like to change that. And they've been recruiting and training people to go in for Trump, basically using a website and these training videos. We watched the left wing code words, and I'm like, how is this training? Like it doesn't prepare you to work. So this one is called Appointee Survival Guide. We'll see what's happening. I don't think there's any triggers. There may be some triggers. There may be transphobia, uh, misgendering, because they are very transphobic, and that's how Bethany rose to fame. Everybody, we'll have a look at that when it comes up. What else? Oh, there's possibly other things, but we can take a pause. I don't think we'll get through this whole thing because we didn't last time either. All right. And the website that exposed this is called ProPublica. I think they are just a news and documentary sort of thing. Hey, Demi. Thank you. Nice to see you. I gotta go back and watch Erin's live. I was on Erin's live for a little bit, but I didn't have the sound up because I was trying to go back to sleep. And then my sister was here while I was asleep, so we got said hello to her. Okay, let me share my screen. Much appreciate anyone. The credits title thing. All right, let me do that. Now, the left wing code words and stuff has about 150, no, 100 plus K views. This one has 19K views. So you can see that they are not getting as many views for some of these other ones. I'm glad that ProPublica is exposing it, though. I think it's just so funny because they announced their entire campaign, and here we are. All right, let's go with Bethany. Let me know if it's God, who was she looking at then? Why did it play from there? Sorry. Why did we change angle, sir? For her to be looking off into the distance? Okay, let me have a look. I wonder if I have to enable it. Share screen. Also share audio. Okay. Says I'm sharing the audio. Okay. Bethany was saying that the career she uses careers, and all of them do, as like almost like a slur. Careers. Yeah. Um, how people vote is their own business, so stay out of it, you know. Okay, let me know if you can hear this.
Or 96% of your colleagues voted for the other candidate. While no amount of training can ever fully prepare everyone for every situation, I invited 6 former political appointees.
So how's that? Also, so okay, cool. You can hear it. It is 2:47. She said, those people who are who are careers, like I said, they're bipartisan. They are not, like, they will do their job regardless, you know? And I know that she talked about in her left-wing code words and stuff like that, they were not enacting Trump's executive orders. Yeah, because some of them were insane. So, yeah, and some of them were insane from her as well. So, 11:48 AM or PM? Make me smile. Okay, let's keep going. So, we've got Bethany, who is, I wonder why they chose her to be the interviewer, because she's got all of the charisma of a fucking toothbrush.
From the Trump administration to share with you our top 10 tips learned firsthand to help you avoid the pitfalls and survive the persecution that unfortunately many of us experience.
Why do you think that is, Bethany? Why do you think you experience persecution? I don't think you do, though. Victimhood? Are you a snowflake? Oh, were people mean to you? Were people mean to you because you're a bigot? Because you're transphobic and racist and sexist with a bunch of internalized misogyny? Were people mean to you because of that? Why don't you be a better person?
The 10 tips you will learn today are all bits of information I wish I'd known before serving in the Trump administration, even before I.
Really? Did you think that, like, what was happening was universal? Do you think that Trump's popular elsewhere? Because he's not. It's only you dinguses who like him.
I arrived, the careers already had it out for me. They tried to keep me from being hired. 2 weeks after I started, BuzzFeed did a hit piece on me.
Yeah, good work on your oh no, that's probably YouTube. If they prevented you from being hired, right? And this happened 2 weeks after you were hired. What's that? Wilbur. Stop. Well, was been quiet for like 2 hours and now he's being a big sook. Yes, BuzzFeed did a hit piece on her. We're gonna take a look at it because I looked at it yesterday too. BuzzFeed. It was a really small article, like genuinely. Okay. Do. Here we go. Trump administration appoints anti-transgender activist to gender equality post. That's not. Is that a hit piece, Bethany? Because I think that's just a report about what happened. This is just what happened, girl. Yeah, let me put this over. Okay. To put it simply, a boy claiming gender confusion must now be allowed in the same shower, bathroom, or locker room with my daughter, wrote the new senior advisor for women's empowerment at USAID. Guess what, Bethany? That's not fucking happening. Okay? Transgender youth are not doing that. And there's no way that any transgender youth are going to be having showers with everybody. Okay? Okay. For some reason, there's only a picture of Trump and not of her. So this hit piece, and look, no name here, no name in the first paragraph. Oh, second paragraph, this disgusting hit piece, Bethany. The Trump administration has appointed an activist who led a campaign to restrict bathroom access for transgender students to the Office of Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment in the U.S. Agency for International Development. Bethany Cosma's title is Senior Advisor for Women's Empowerment, according to an agency spokesperson. Cosma did not return a message seeking comment for this story. Hit piece. This hit piece asked you for a comment. I'm going to have to play the video so I can go on mute and tell Wilbur to be quiet. Cosma held positions in the White House and Department of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush, according to her LinkedIn profile, for dedicating herself full-time to raising her children. Did you ever think about why maybe you didn't have any... My God. I'm going to have to press play. All right, hang on. Once I get Wilbur sorted, then I will go back to that article.
Fueled by information that was leaked about my past advocacy, standing up for my children's safety against the radical gender ideology in Fairfax and Loudoun County public schools. I had a huge target on my back.
Yeah, one you earned as well. You earned that because you're transphobic and you were for women's empowerment, but you don't think trans women are women. So you're not for women's empowerment. Yeah? She's gross. I need my spray bottle. Hopefully he'll be quiet. All right, I'm gonna go back to that article. Yeah, so I think that it's telling that she was not employed in between. Do you want to be a career employee? Because it looks like you have a bit of venom in you for those people. So in 2016, she launched a campaign to oppose the Obama administration's guidance to public schools that said transgender students have the right to use facilities matching their gender identity. The guidance was withdrawn by the Trump administration in February. Oh, this is 2017. USAID has backed programs in several countries with the goal of supporting LGBT economic empowerment, access to housing and healthcare, and political participation. The agency also adopted guidelines in late 2016 barring contractors overseas from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity in providing services. Like, Trump employed her as a fuck you. Plain and simple. This whole, like, division is obviously for, equity, equality, and making sure that people are not discriminated against. And they put in this bigot. I wonder why they didn't like you, Bethany. When asked whether Cosma's appointment signaled a change in policy, the agency spokesperson responded, USAID has not taken any measures regarding the discrimination policy for contractors, as is the case with many other policies. USAID is committed to promoting a work environment that is free from sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination in accordance with existing federal law. Austin Rouse of the Center for Family and Human Rights, which opposes promoting LGBT. See, with that title, right, Center for Family and Human Rights, you'd think, oh, they sound like a stand-up like organization. They sound so good, right? No. You look at all of the lists. So the Heritage Foundation is like a governing body with a lot of other little committees and organizations who have contributed to it. And they have these names like this, like the Fairness in Schools Act or whatever, and they're usually just like bigoted Christians. Not all Christians are bigoted, but these ones are. All right. So, which opposes promoting LGBT and abortion rights in foreign policy, said he did not think appointment represented a reversal from Obama administration policy. He believes the agency remains filled with LGBT rights supporters who he said persecuted. Ooh, isn't that interesting that we've got the same wording there? Bethany's read this article. Persecuted people with views like Cosma under Obama and argued that the Trump administration hadn't clearly reversed course since taking office. There's not even a picture of her here. How could she call this a hit piece? The LGBTs, like they're a monolith, are ruthless street fighters. Okay. Bruce said, citing efforts to discredit his organization as a hate group after it was included in a delegation to the UN's Commission on the Status of Women. This administration is no slam dunk for people like me or Bethany Cosma. The Trump administration is filled with squishes on this issue. Is that your formal like diagnose? They're full of squishes. Bethany Cosma is a lovely, sweet woman who just happens to believe that girls with penises just ought not to be showering next to girls without penises, he added. That's not happening anywhere. It's just not happening. It's not fucking happening. Okay. Now, I say it's not happening in America. In Europe, okay, nudity is not sexualized. Because I have a few artist friends, and I have a friend who's from Germany. I have a couple of friends from Germany who are artists, and my German artist friend used to say, "Oh, Australians, you're such prudes. Like, everybody's just like nudity is not a thing in Europe. It's not very like it doesn't raise eyebrows." And I saw this when I was in Europe because I went to heaps and heaps of art galleries, and what was all over the art galleries? Nude paintings. What else was all over the art galleries? Children. Children, nude paintings. It's not sexualized. They're not going there to look at the nude body saying, "Look at that, it's a Rudy Tooty. Oh my god." It's just art. And they learn about consent, what's right with their body. And a kid who has knowledge of what's private, what's consent, is somebody who can communicate if they're being abused. So, sex education is very important. So, in July 2016, Cosmo published a post on the at the Daily Signal, a publication of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank calling for the national campaign in opposition to Obama administration's guidance saying transgender students have the right to use bathrooms matching their gender identity. She called the campaign United We Stand. United We Stand against trans people. Like, get fucked. And made her case against the policy by repeating the unsubstantiated assertions that policies allowing transgender people to access the bathroom matching their gender identity leads to sexual assault. Bethany, the statistics show that children are more likely to be abused by someone they know, and abuse is overwhelmingly done by cisgender males. I'm sorry. Okay, you don't have anything that supports that. To put it simply, a boy claiming gender confusion must now be allowed in the same shower, bathroom, or locker room with my daughter under the president's transgender policies? Wrong. Not happening. And that's not what it means. She wrote, when I learned that predators could abuse these new policies to hurt children in school lockers, shelters, pool, showers, and other vulnerable public places like remote bathrooms in national parks, I realized I had to do something. I'm sorry, are there a spate of things happening in remote bathrooms in national parks? Is that where the trans people are going to attack? Because talk about hyperbole. God damn. Keep in mind, this is a hit piece against her. Hit piece. After President Donald Trump withdrew the guidance in February, Cosmo wrote, the silent majority must no longer be silent. With Trump, we now have a president who is focused on remedying the lawlessness of prior administrations. You're not the majority. And you're not fucking silent either. Like, what a joke. All right. That's the terrible hit piece from Bethany. It doesn't even have a picture of her. You know what I mean? Okay, let's keep going.
Nevertheless, I was privileged to join USAID as the senior advisor for women's empowerment. And despite all the hostility and attacks, and there were many, I thrived, ultimately rising to Deputy Chief of Staff at USAID, all the while advancing President Trump's policies.
Can you imagine her being in charge anywhere? Oh, that must have been the worst. Anyone who wants to jump into the DMs or send me, I'm on Instagram and TikTok, Echo Tish. Any ex-workers with Bethany want to spill the tea? Love to hear about it because she seems like she's awful. That's just my opinion, of course.
Your first tip for survival is to know the president's policy positions. No matter what job you are selected for, whatever department, agency, or office, it's imperative to have a high-level view of the president's position on every area of policy. You may be working on issues that have a domestic focus, but it's equally important to know their foreign policy positions. Domestic policy affects foreign policy and vice versa. In one way or another, each policy position is interrelated to another, even if it's not clear at first. And if you want to be more informed on the president's policy positions, I would recommend listening to speeches and interviews and reading tweets and executive orders. During the Trump administration, I attended the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations.
I've heard her talk about this, and she sounded like she was just like a nightmare, just constantly arguing with people. New chat. Oh, okay. I can't put messages on the screen here. So yeah, people who make these claims about the dangers to children don't seem to have specific examples of this happening. Yep. I'm sick of people not fact-checking Donald Trump on one thing. No one is killing babies after they're born. That's called infanticide. No one's doing that. And I actually heard Fox News say that it's not happening. So, but I'd like everybody to be saying it to him. That's not actually happening.
During negotiations, the topic of sovereignty came up. The U.S. career negotiator vocally opposed sovereignty, which completely went against the U.S. position. I vividly remember leaning over to tell the negotiator that she needed to change the position For the record, because President Trump did support national sovereignty and, in fact, used the word sovereignty 21 times during his speech at the UN just 6 months earlier. Had I not been aware of this fact in the US position, it would have been embarrassing to the United States and downright detrimental to our negotiating position on other matters.
That would have been embarrassing? That would have been embarrassing. Just that bit. You being like 21 times, he mentioned it 21 times. You being a simp for Donald Trump is embarrassing. God damn.
So, no matter the topic, life, energy, trade, defense, abortion, gender ideology, climate change, Israel, whatever the topic may be, make sure that you are read up, listen up, and reflect the president's position at every opportunity, particularly in the field and the area for which you're serving. Knowing the president's policy positions will not only help you survive, but thrive. Your second tip is to think before you speak, write, or act. As a political appointee serving at the pleasure of the president, you are a de facto ambassador for the president. Whatever you say, whatever you write, whatever you do reflects not only on you, but also the president. Your number one job as an appointee is to carry forward and implement the president's agenda and policy, to be extensions of his leadership. As such, we must always be mindful that others are watching and seeking to discredit, derail, and even damage actions and outcomes that the president seeks to take.
And what do you think that is, Bethany? Do you think that's normal? Because it's not. It's absolutely not. And it's always like they're coming after us. And like I said before, why do you have to be so like you shouldn't be loyal to the president? Again, it should be loyalty to the constitution and to the democracy, to the country. Like the president, is in charge, but there's so many different other people represented in the government, and that's what the checks and balances are all about. So it's interesting that she's saying that. And she's the ultimate victim. Everybody's after us. Everybody's coming for us. They want to damage us, delay us, and discredit. No, you do that yourself.
As political appointees, we are a unique group of about 4,000 individuals who are entrusted to lead and guide millions of government employees for the benefit of all Americans. What we say matters. What we write matters.
All Americans. All Americans, Bethany. I don't want to. I don't want to worry you or anything, but there are transgender Americans. There are non-binary Americans. There are Americans who have had abortions. There are Black Americans, Latino Americans. There are lots of different types of Americans. And you just said you represent all of them? Are you sure about that?
Matters. What we do matters. We must always be on our guard with our words, knowing that we will reflect either positively or negatively on the president. People are listening, and all the time. Even when we don't think others are paying attention, they are. Our blog posts, articles, books, publication, old school papers, work reports, resumes, testimonies, even our photos, both past and present, are searched for and sifted through by the left in an effort to discredit us, attack.
Hang on, what? Why, where did the left come up? Why do you Aren't you talking about people in your job? What's this got to do with being an appointee? Yeah, the people who are your enemy, enemy, they are going to do shit like that because they don't like you, because you're trying to maybe hurt someone they love or trying to hurt them directly. Yeah. So, yeah, people might go looking after your stuff to see if you're, uh, uh, talking the talk and walking the walk. For example, Matt Gaetz allegedly involved in child trafficking, but he's also in the Trump, he's a Republican. Have you got anything like that happening, Bethany? Yeah. I think it's really terrible that, like she's she's gone off topic here. Not like that was. I think it's misleading because this is supposed to be about getting a job in the Trump administration, right? So what's that got to do with the left? And not everybody who's a Democrat is on the left. In fact, they're center right, center at best. Okay? Very few of them are left wing. You guys don't know what you're talking about when it comes to that. I used to have this fight because, in case people don't know, I do anti MLM content. And I used to have this discussion with people. I'm working on a video about Angelique, if people know who that is. She was with Monate and she was publicly terminated, and she was doing anti-MLM and then stopped, and now that Monate is destroyed, she's using that to sort of gain traction, and she's into MLMs again. And she said how the anti-MLM movement was left wing, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's center. It's center, and right. The people on the right don't know what left wing means because they think it's just the opposite of them because they're so extreme, and it's just not true.
Attack the president or damage what is being worked on in order to advance their alternative agendas. Make sure that you curtail your social media and remove items that are in any way damaging, vulgar, or contradict the policies you are there to implement.
Why would you have to say that, Bethany? Wouldn't you just be an upstanding person? Because while as a teacher, I try to be private, you get conversations like when you first start teaching, or, as social media has grown, because it is different now. Back in the day, I think I used to have an Instagram, and there were students on it, at choir, or if we were doing a play or something like that. But now I would never put them up like that. So it was like a learning curve. But why do you have to be so careful on your social media if you're an upstanding person? You don't have to do that. Just live your life, Mm. You got something to hide?
Do that now before you are appointed. If you don't want to end up having to explain something you said or wrote to your mother or the president, then don't. In the same manner, how we act carries tremendous weight in how we're perceived and how well we represent the president. Our actions, both publicly and privately, must be impeccable. By being appointees, you are by default under the microscope, and everything you do eventually can become public and likely will. I don't want to alarm you, but simply remind you to always be on, be alert, and be above reproach. Not only will you reflect highly upon yourself, your colleagues, and the president, you will be able to overcome the left's attacks and thrive while doing so.
Why, again, what are you talking about? The left, this is Appointee Survival Guide. Like, what the fuck does the left have to do with this? You know, you're talking about, like, I think she's saying the left and meaning the career employees who may not be left wing, you know? Uh, hmm. You have to be beyond reproach. So you can't be transphobic because you're transphobic and you seem to have done well.
So, your next tip comes from my dear friend Katie, who left her job as a state trial court judge to serve in the Trump administration at the Department of Justice. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bethany. It's such a pleasure.
Katie had a few positions during the Trump administration, notably the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General, running the Office of Justice Programs at the Department of Justice. Are you glad that you made the leap?
Oh, I am, Bethany. There is no greater honor than serving the President of the United States. It was the greatest honor of my life.
Ooh. At least she's not wearing the glasses this time around that make her look like she's got Barbie eyes. You know those glasses that the sort of like the gag glasses with the Barbie eyes on it? That's kind of like what she looked like in the other video. And she kind of looks like she's sitting up a little bit straighter. She had terrible posture in that last video. This woman was a judge and she's so bigoted. Damn. I don't understand the American system. Please don't try to explain it to me. It's okay. I'm okay not understanding it. So it's very strange to me that you elect judges and that judges can be Democrats and Republicans and things like that. In Australia, we just have judges. They apply to be a judge and then they become a judge. Like it's just a career path, you know? So it's very strange to me. Tip 2, learn the lingo. This is their thing. They've already done a big video about this. You know?
Even though it's a lot of hard work, I found it to be true that 1 year as a political is like 5 years in normal work time. You're not only representing the president, and in my case, the attorney general, you're also navigating the waters of the federal workforce. I had never worked in the federal government, and I had to learn very quickly.
Katie, is there a top tip that you would share with new political appointees?
Yes, learn the lingo. I believe a smart way to approach federal service as a political is to look at it like you're learning a foreign language, especially if you're coming into service like I did with little or no experience with the federal government. Federal employees use a lot of acronyms. In my very first job, I was at an executive level, and on my first day, the staff was trying to brief me and they just used acronym after acronym. And I was trying to Google under the table so I could look, very competent to them until I realized, people in the middle of the country don't talk like that. And so when you are serving the public, when you're serving the citizens of this country as a federal employee, you should speak like they do. So I asked them to stop using acronyms and actually use the words. And that was very helpful.
Katie,
I'm sorry, what? She asked these people to stop using acronyms and use the words. What a waste of time. Like, just learn the acronyms. Teaching has a lot of acronyms as well. Honestly, it does. But you learn them. It's like anything. Like every job, every situation has a different language. And you learn it when you go to new jobs. And I'm sure that if you had asked for, hey, can I get a big list of all the acronyms? They would have provided one for you rather than you Googling under your desk. That's weird.
That's great advice.
Yeah. And Bethany, there's also nuances to the phrases and words which are used universally. And you have to figure out how they are applicable. For instance, when a federal employee uses the word policy, they're typically using a policy to say why they can't perform a task that you've asked them to do. This policy is something that was probably developed internally prior to you getting there by the last administration or even years and years before. With that, what do you do if this policy exists?
So what do you do?
Yeah. And in that case, you ask for the policy and you ask to see it in writing. And it's somewhat stunning how that you find that frequently they cannot provide that in writing.
Can you imagine? Oh my God, these Karens. Oh yeah? It's a policy? Where is it? Show me. Show me it written down somewhere. Would they say anything if they actually did get given the policy? God, these people are just awful.
I've heard that.
So then you try to look back historically, where did it emanate from? And so what you first do is, if you can get it in writing, you look at it, and then you see if you can either redact it, if it's an internal policy, and you can say this is no longer the policy, you can replace it with something that is more in line with the president that you're serving and his or her priorities. Or if it's not in writing, then at that point you can say this is a policy that you've been following, but it's not actually a policy that's on the books, and inform everyone we will no longer be following that policy. And actually, the federal employees, once you were able to speak their language, were very responsive and had an easier time with changes.
Interesting. So it's all about learn the lingo to be able to speak their language.
Yes, definitely. Sometimes you need to go a step further because there's also things that they are called guidance documents. Now, I know in our administration, the Office of Management and Budget worked very hard to cut back on all guidance documents because they really don't have the force or effect of law. A guidance document is just a federal employee's interpretation of a piece of legislation, a rule, a regulation, an appropriation from Congress. It's just the way that they are interpreting it. But then when it goes up, it feels very official to people, say, who are looking for guidance on a rule,
right,
in the middle of the country, or someone who's trying to get grant money.
Right.
They're going to look at these guidance documents as the rule of the land. And
why would there be a document for guidance if it wasn't to be used for guidance, Katie? Because they didn't always agree with what the president was saying, because guess what? There are things that the president, maybe doesn't like that are going through because he's not just the only one in control of everything. Did you think about that? Probably not, eh?
really, in the end, only the courts can decide. And of course, being a former judge, that was really confusing to me how these guidance documents were somehow more powerful than the courts. So we were able to get rid of, quite a few of the guidance documents that give federal employees a tremendous amount of power.
Great points, Katie. So what if What if the policy is coming from higher ups or even political appointees?
That actually happened when I was in office. So I had 6 political appointees who answered up to me. And when I arrived at the Office of Justice Programs, they informed me that their top security clearances, while they were completely cleared to get the security clearances, they had not been implemented. And so I ran, this was a bureau, so I had my own administrative staff. And so I went to them and said, why not? Well, it turned out that the Deputy Attorney General had instituted a policy saying that he wanted to cut down on the number of clearances in the Department of Justice. Makes sense. However, the Deputy Attorney General did not mean that politicals who were brought in to supervise federal employees who had clearances should not get clearances. So in that particular case, I couldn't change the policy. I couldn't take down the guidance document. It was written by someone else. So I had to just find another way in which to communicate with the federal employees and let them know that our top security clearances needed to be implemented. And the way that I did that was to have them come up with a list of all the staff in the building who had active clearances, and then show them that the politicals in the office were actually supervising these individuals, which means a federal employee would not be able to brief someone on top security information. That makes no sense. The political is the highest authority in the office. And so our top security clearances were implemented within 2 weeks.
That's great. I love the very creative solution to that kind of insane problem that you had. I love it.
Kind of insane problem. So this is meant to be a training. How does this help people navigate the job? This is just bizarre that they are, like something so specific. And again, I'm so disturbed that that woman was a judge. God damn.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Thank you, Bethany.
Now we're going to hear from Matthew, who worked in the Trump administration at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and then moved over to the Department of the Interior in executive role as the White House liaison. Matthew, if you had to narrow your experience down to one tip for survival, what would that be?
First, let me say that serving the President of the United States is the opportunity of a lifetime. It requires enthusiasm, hard work.
Go to bed. It's after your bedtime, young man. What are you doing up still? Man, this guy's a baby. Like he's got such a baby face. My God. Yeah, it does. No, Trump knows about it. Sorry. Look, love the username, knuckle deep. Wink, wink. Yeah, no, Trump knows about it. The Heritage Foundation director, whoever's in charge, Kevin, somebody, he had a book. He's got a book coming out, and J.D. Vance wrote the foreword. All of these people worked under Trump. He knows about it.
And you have to have a true desire to represent the president and his policies every single day when you come in. So if you can do that, you're off to a great start. That said, if I had to suggest one tip for survival, it would be learn how to navigate your department, your agency, and the culture of the federal government. It's important to understand that when starting your career as a political appointee or you're working in an agency for the first time, experience is going to be your best teacher.
How was that valuable, that experience? Because you didn't serve in the federal government before. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I came in, I was given advice all the time about, this is how it works in a general sense. And then when I came in and I was in my department, what I found was that in talking to both career civil service and political appointees, you just learn, here's the written rules, here are the unwritten rules. And a lot of the times you have to be careful, even about what they say are written rules might not be written rules. And I think because a lot of the times it can go on where someone tells you how something works and things get lost in translation, whatever it is. So you have to find out what the rules really are and understand that if there are unwritten rules, if they're a hindrance, how you can work around them. So it's a common misunderstanding amongst new appointees, myself included at the time, that if you know everything there is to know about health policy, for example, you will be immediately successful in a policy position at, Department of Health and Human Services. The reality is that you can know everything there is to know about that policy, but you're really not going to get much done without knowing the rules of the agency, right? Roadblocks are everywhere. The first thing that I came to understand when I was in there was how much power the executive branch is effectively given from Congress. So for better or for worse, there's wide latitude on policies, rules, the regulations, all these things that determine how laws are carried out in the executive branch. And it's your job to ensure that power is executed responsibly and in line with the president's will.
So Matthew, how do you get to that point?
Yeah, so the way to do that really is that you have to learn how to navigate the department, the agency, and then the culture of the federal government, right? So you know that you're going to be dealing with your career civil service employees. You have to understand the relationship that they have to you, and then also understand the relationship of you with your fellow political appointees. And that's why I said it was good to have people that you can trust. Political appointees, you can't take for granted that they are going to be in line with the president, right?
Yes.
Right. So you have to be sort of wary about that, unfortunately. Shortly after joining the presidential administration and federal government for the first time, I was promoted to an executive role in a new office. I quickly realized that I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was at a new agency. So identifying personnel that I could trust was crucial to learning just the most basic policies, agency structure, all those rules that guide what you're doing day to day, so that you then get to that point where you say, here's where my policy expertise comes in. Now we're executing. Now the ball's rolling.
That's something that MLMers say. You don't know what you don't know. And it's interesting that you don't know who you can trust and so on and so on. Now, being a teacher as well, the bureaucracy of being in a government job definitely is a thing. I think there's gonna be people who want to rise through the ranks, and they'll do anything to get there, to do it. So that makes a lot of sense. But I think that, like you said, it's disappointing that you can't trust everybody. And it's like, well, yeah, I imagine that it would be very chaotic to be in the Trump administration, And that's why it's very important not to get, even if all of the polls are saying that Harris and Walz are ahead, don't get complacent. People need to vote. And I'm not pro Harris when she's not talking, when she's saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. Yeah, they're not doing that. They're committing genocide. So fuck off with that.
You'll also find that there probably isn't a single person in your entire agency who knows all the policies, rules, regulations, guidelines memorized. So,
I bet Bethany and Katie both knew, and I bet you they pulled it out every time they could.
You can often waste time asking around. You get no answers, or you eventually get an answer that you might find later is incorrect. I found, so when I was at Housing and Urban Development, part of our job was to administer funds for various grant programs. So, we were drafting, reviewing, executing all these policies and conditions for receiving funds. These documents are often formulated by and then reviewed by expert staff who are career civil service. So, for example, it was common to find that there's these norms and rules within documents, stipulations about people who get funding that were explicitly contrary to the will of the president. So having an understanding of exactly where and how those policies can be corrected to align with the president when the paper's moving very quickly and you have to get it done, it's essential to being effective.
So it sounds like you really need to know the president's policies, which was our first point. Our number one tip is to know the president's policies.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
That guy was so young. He looked so young. He's got a lot of collagen. He's looking good, but I don't know if I could take him seriously as like a co-worker. And hello, August. Lovely to see you.
We heard from Katie about learning the lingo and from Matt about learning how to navigate your department. The next 3 tips for survival are all about the importance of relationships. Here with us to highlight the first relationship is my friend Pam. Pam worked on the 2016 Trump campaign and went on to serve on Beachhead at the State Department during the transition. Pam, you started on day 1 of the Trump administration and you stayed until the final hour.
Yeah. Shocking that I made it. Yes.
It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is pretty shocking. Hang on, did I mute it? No. Because your side tried to overthrow the government in a coup, in an attempted coup. Remember that? People died.
You served as a senior advisor in several different bureaus. And then the last position, you were the acting assistant secretary of the international organizations.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes.
What would be your main tip that you would like to pass on to new political appointees?
Well, first off, it was such a pleasure to get to serve the president and to get to serve with you for a while too. That was fun too. But, I think the most important.
Do they have to? All of them. It was such an honor to serve that president. Fuck off. Like, I don't even think there'd be Harris sycophants or Biden sycophants who would be so sucking up to them. It's okay not to love your boss. Ugh. It's just it.
Important thing is to connect with political appointees, not only in your agency, but across the agencies. The State Department is a particularly challenging bureau, especially in the last administration, because what we have to remember is that the Secretary of State had been President Trump's opponent. She had just served there. So we were walking into a fairly hostile environment, to say the least, of folks who had just concluded working with her.
Wow, isn't that amazing that all of them have said this? And everybody's making a big deal about it. Remember Bethany's hit piece from BuzzFeed?
And, it just happened that the numbers were pretty thin for about, the first month. I started in the International Religious Freedom Office first. I was the only person there until I got a junior assistant. And even
International religious freedom, you say? I wonder if you had any Muslims on there. Yeah, surely. If we're talking about religious freedom, that's all religions. Did you have any Satanists? Interesting.
just having one other political appointee, Bethany, it made so much difference. Going out 2 by 2 is it's a really pretty vital truth that we should always have a buddy with us. And there's an old saying, you should never go to the forum alone. And having 2 political appointees together just made a huge difference. And
I think that's a reference to Julius Caesar. You should never go to the forum alone because he was stabbed in the forum. Maybe I'm overestimating the academic rigor of this, but that's what I thought of.
And it's really important to find other political appointees across other agencies. USAID and state were kind of sisters, if you would, but even connecting with people at the National Security Agency, Department of Defense, it was really important that we do that. And this is simple, but return every call and every email. And you know what? That's going to serve you in life, not just as a political appointee. At state, I set up something called Coffee Time.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think you came a couple times. It was a pre-work Bible study. And to be honest, it wouldn't have been politically correct to call it that. And it grew to include a time of networking for several of us at state. We shared challenges. We even helped each other find furniture and lamps and things.
Our Bible study, but it wasn't okay to call it that, but it was a Bible study. Yeah, that's sus.
For political appointees to meet together in some fashion, not to hide from the career or hide things from them, but there's just some things that you need to say in the confines of with fellow politicals.
Absolutely.
And yeah, by the way, Bethany, that coffee time is still going on.
Wow.
Today, so it's been a good time.
That's great. I do remember attending several of those with you, and it was great to meet folks at the State Department that I didn't know. And I do remember even being able to collaborate with a lot of those folks.
Got a lot of business done during that
We
time.
We did. So how did you win over the career people?
Yeah, okay. Not that easy and not that hard. I always like to quote that great theologian and political philosopher, Tim McGraw, who says in his song, always be humble and kind. I think political appointees sometimes get a bad rap for being nasty. And even though many bureaucrats are against us, and it's just a fact of life, it's just the tension here in Washington.
Yeah, that's accurate, especially when you look at Bethany with her permanent anger sneer. This lady obviously comes off as being a little bit more personable, but obviously she's just the nicer face of it, you know?
We can also accomplish a lot by remembering how to treat people. Being humble and kind is really a powerful ploy. And by the way, the right thing to do.
It is, but as long as you're doing it without any agenda, yeah, otherwise that's manipulation, okay? Because you said a powerful ploy. So if you're actually genuinely doing it to be working together, then that's great. But I don't think you are. And I definitely don't think Bethany would.
I think that's great advice. Thank you so much. The next relationship I want to highlight is the relationship between political appointees and Capitol Hill. For those who have worked with or on the Hill, this tip may come as a no-brainer. Congress serves as the alter ego for the executive branch and must work with the president to fund and legislate policy. For those who are new to the legislative branch, their power, partnership, and influence can be vital to thriving as an appointee. Although we'll have some more in-depth training specific to working with Congress, tip number 6 is to know the Hill and build collaborative relationships. Take the time to research and identify the senators and members of Congress that oversee and are interested in the issues and policies that you're working on.
Oh, God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh, God. Oh, thank you. Gen Z is dope shit. Just Bethany sidling up to, I don't know, MTG. Hang on. Is MTG in the Senate or in Congress? I don't know. Like I said before, I don't know about American politics, and please don't tell me. Yes, absolutely, August. Like she's just harassing them about like, hey, we got to do something about the transgenders. Let's get rid of them. Let's put them in camps. Let's put them in camps. Okay. Oh. Also, it sounds like, you know, It does sound obvious. And also, Congress is a bunch of people, and they aren't just trying to do what the president's doing, they represent their constituents as well. So, yeah, Bethany, think about that.
For the most part, each legislator serves on various committees and subcommittees that have unique perspectives and purse strings that can either help or hurt the president and you. It's in our best interest to build strong collaborative bonds with both key and supportive members. While we may not always see eye to eye, it's always helpful to have friends on the Hill. Face-to-face meetings and other direct engagements help to build rapport, trust, and respect. Routine interactions help ensure support much more than last-minute requests from strangers. Find out what makes each of the members tick on both sides.
I don't think that me knowing Bethany better is going to make me accept her bigoted point of view. I'm going to be avoiding her. Can you imagine? You're at Congress, you're having a, $100 lunch, and but it's $10 and you pocket the rest, and you're like, oh fuck, Bethany's here. Oh God, did she see it? Yep, she saw us. Hey Bethany, how you going? Yeah. Yeah, those transgenders, they sure are annoying. In the toilets, you say, yeah. I've been yep, totally support you, girl. All right, see you later. See you later. See you later. It'd just be the worst. It'd be the worst.
That way, you'll be best prepared. Always take the opportunity to message and reinforce the president's agenda. Be bold and ask for help when necessary to help advance and codify the president's policy and objectives. Policies can be readily changed, but it takes much more effort to change the law. Tip number 7 is to partner with civil society organizations. Working for the president as a political appointee, helping to lead and transform America, being in the center of the government, why would anyone need to partner with non-governmental organizations? But that's it. That's the key. They're not the government. They're organizations that interact with and influence civil society, public perception, and at times government leaders.
Duh? Like, duh. Of course. No one would question that, Bethany. How about Planned Parenthood? Are you going to be working with them?
Developing partnerships with civil society organizations is a two-way street. For them, it offers additional credibility and closeness to the government to help advance specific policies, positions, or perspectives. For appointees, they offer an alternative avenue and champion to help advance the president's policies and even sway public opinion. Organizations like the Heritage Foundation, the Family Research Council, Alliance Defending Freedom, and so many others are key to help reach millions of Americans. Their messaging can help connect.
Oh, really? You say those organizations. What a coincidence that they are pushing all of the things that you believe, right? It's not like it's like, a coincidence that these videos are made by the Heritage Foundation, because there's a lot of other organizations out there that you should be working with, and some that you shouldn't be working with. Like, nobody in the world should be using anything that the libs of TikTok is tweeting, yeah, it can help reach millions of Americans. I don't know that it's going to help your cause, though, because as much as Bethany is sort of like has her head up her own ass, she doesn't she said she's the silent majority. No, you're not. Okay, not many people want what you guys are trying to install here.
and propel the president, and in turn, the work you're accomplishing on his behalf. They readily have the ears of politicians, press, and the public, and can at times even help protect those under attack. When I was representing the United States at the United Nations up in New York, I was immediately under attack for sharing the Trump administration's pro-life position during a closed-door meeting. This stance unnerved the left, but it emboldened.
Oh, she's so angry about this. Yeah. Yep. You were speaking for a minority of people who are pro-life. And you're not pro-life, you're anti-choice. Because once the baby's born, there isn't a chance it's going to get murdered and you get away with it. Infanticide, which Donald Trump has said more than once. Okay. You don't give a shit what happens after it's born. The Republicans and the conservatives have voted out the family tax benefit. They don't have a platform of paid parental leave, and they don't have subsidized childcare or anything like that. It's gonna make life easier. They won't even tackle price gouging with groceries and things like shopping and food and things people need. Yeah. So you are anti-choice, not pro-life. So shut up. What else was she saying there? What was the point of this one? Oh, she always, I was going to say, she always talks about how she represented America at this UN thing. Is that the only thing you did? I think it is. Because that's the only thing I've heard her talk about.
The right. When the civil society organizations saw that I was firm in presenting the president's position, they intervened to help thwart negative hit pieces in the press and instead highlight the sincerity of the Trump administration to promote life, family, and religious freedom. Obviously, civil society organizations.
You don't, though, because the Republicans got rid of the family tax benefit and you don't have religious freedom. There were all those travel bans that Donald Trump instituted, and they were all Muslim countries. Why isn't there more support for Palestine? Religious freedom? Anyone? Like, it's just a lie. And can't you fight your own battles, Bethany? Were those people being mean to you because you're bigoted? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Organizations have their own agendas, and at times their agendas, perspectives, and issues may conflict with those of the president.
You have your own agenda. It's all agenda. It's all your own agenda. This whole thing is your this minority of Christo-fascists. That's what you are. Ugh.
Nevertheless, actively working with them to foster synergies both inside government and out can be greatly beneficial for all. They can help by being advocates, amplifiers, and allies.
Advocates for all, Bethany. She said it at the beginning, all Americans. Advocates for all Americans. There are transgendered Americans. There are non-binary Americans. There are Black Americans, Latino Americans. There are Americans who have had abortions. All of them. Listen to yourself.
As we all seek to advance the president's agenda for the good of the nation. Our next 2 tips will help you navigate challenges surrounding career bureaucrats and the media. And our last tip will equip you to support the president and advance his agenda in the midst of all of these challenges. Now we have Max, who served twice in the federal government. First at the U.S. Department of State during the George W. Bush administration, and more recently at the U.S. Agency for International Development in the Trump administration. Max has had a long career in foreign policy as an NGO practitioner, government contractor, and think tank expert. Max, what piece of advice would you give new appointees serving in a presidential administration?
Well, Bethany, it's great to see you again, and thank you for this opportunity. I guess to start, I think the most important thing is to understand the sacred trust that's being bestowed on you when you enter into government. You know, as a public servant, you're working on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Max. He looks a bit too cash, sitting on the seat, like reclined back. Yeah, no. Again, you are representing all American people. All of them, Bethany.
And that's 330 million people, the greatest country on the planet. That's just an awesome thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So when you come into government, especially people who are new, you don't treat it as your personal affair because it's not yours.
Exactly.
It belongs to the American people.
Are you listening, Bethany? It's not yours. It's not your country where you can discriminate against transgender people. Yeah, you can't do that.
And I guess you could look at it in terms of stewardship of America's government, at least your piece that you're doing, and the resources that that come with it. Now, in terms of a survival tip, do not let career bureaucrats hinder you from advancing the president's agenda. Keep in mind, you're coming into a place, Washington, D.C., that does not share your conservative values. They're even hostile to it because you're here to do something that's not in their interest. They're not going to be your friend, and they're not going to help you succeed.
It's not in their interest, right? But because it's not in anybody's interest, because you're a minority. So it's not just that, all right? And it's so funny because they just immediately have gone to playing the victim again. Oh, nobody likes us. We're being attacked. You deserve it, ignorant people.
What are you doing? You're here to cut government. You're here to cut spending. You're here to cut regulations. You're here to stop the waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on. But a lot of careers.
You're here to stop the corruption, the fraud and abuse. If you watch some more news, they have a really good video about all the shit that Donald Trump did. Like, I didn't even realize how much they had conditions on sending aid to Ukraine, right? That they had to start a criminal case against Joe Biden and the son Hunter, and or else they wouldn't get the aid, right? So they were about to announce that they were going to do that, and then someone found out about it, and so then America sent them the aid without the case being opened. And so, like, they're claiming, well, it never happened, and it never actually happened, so it doesn't matter. No, it matters. Okay, that's just one example of corruption that went on. All right, there's many.
Have been made from that. A lot of money has been made from that. Fiefdoms have been built around it. So you're going to get a lot of opposition here. It's an entire industry of opposition from lobbyists, professional associations, contractor groups, and disappointingly, faith-based organizations.
Yes.
Why? You're upending the apple cart, right?
Yeah.
And whereas for the American people, the government has failed and the government has wasted so much money, for the groups here in Washington, D.C., it has worked for them. So when you're here representing the American people, consider it that you are really blessed. You're taking on a blessed obligation, but it is also a solemn obligation to carry.
No, it's not a blessed obligation. It's just a job. It's not It's not divine intervention or anything like that.
Carry out the interests of the American people.
Max, can you give us an example of when the bureaucracy impeded your work?
Yeah, it's when I had the privilege of working for Vice President Pence as his envoy to Iraq. Now, at the time, President Trump had finally defeated ISIS, this crazy and very violent jihadist terrorist group.
Oh, hang on. I thought there was religious freedom. I thought we were about religious freedom. And I'm sorry, he defeated ISIS? Is ISIS still around? I'll have a look. All right. Oh, God.
But they had taken a devastating toll on the religious minorities. In fact, ISIS had a campaign of genocide to exterminate the religious minorities, especially the Christians and others. And
I'm very excited. My work cover claim went through. Oh, that's amazing. Hang on. I need to see. All right. Ooh. Is ISIS still around? ISIS remains, despite losing many of its leaders and its territories. Murphy, if you can hear him crying, he wants to get down from there. There are steps beside me. He knows how to use them. He knows how to get down, and he is not getting down. Okay. Hello. ISIS remains capable of conducting insurgent operations in Iraq and Syria while overseeing at least 19 branches and networks in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Some of ISIS's most prominent branches and networks are detailed in separate entries on this site. Current ISIS leader Abu Hafs al-Qurashi was named in August. The Islamic State continues to wage a low-level insurgency across Syria and Iraq. As of early 2024, UN sanctions monitors reported that the Islamic State was effectively suppressed in Iraq and Syria, but remained a threat. I'm sorry, they were beaten? Did you say they were beaten? They were beaten. They were beaten. I think Matthew's worked out how to get down. He's a bit awkward. Yeah, he got down. Yay! Okay, let's keep going.
So the White House believed that we need to help these people. And for the Christians in particular, the churches were very active in trying to help them go back and restart their lives. So we thought we'd take a little bit of the overall money that we were spending in Iraq to help these communities. Boy, were we shocked by the response. At first, we were told, no, you can't give money to the churches. It's against the Constitution, the Establishment Clause, separating church and state. And of course, we were not idiots. Federal government, state government, local governments all routinely give monies to churches from everything from social services to when you have floods and hurricanes. So we pushed that aside. Then they came up with another excuse, need, not creed, meaning, no, we don't give money to religious people. And so I said, well, this was a State Department person, pretty senior. And I said, well, what if a people are being exterminated or are the target of extermination because of their creed? We still can't help them? And he said, no, we can't. So we pushed all of that aside. But there was one, I thought, very important lesson that we should not forget, especially when we're talking about Washington, D.C. and the swamp. It is its anti-Christian animus. And people come here from outside of the country where it's normal America. I think they're shocked to find that there's so much hostility to our basic traditional values.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. Like, Joe Biden's very religious. It's just that he's not the same religion as them. I think he's Catholic, isn't he? But JD's Catholic as well. That's just not true. It's just not true. It's not anti-Christian, right? They just don't want you to be bigoted. And there is meant to be a separation of church and state, like without a doubt. How much is left to go? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I remember, Max, when the vice president said on behalf of the president that we're no longer going to use UN agencies, but USAID to implement this on behalf of the persecuted people in Iraq. And I'll never forget the next day, a career bureaucrat told me randomly, he can't do that. It was amazing, the resistance. It was just unbelievable. They did not want to help Christians at all.
No. And well, we went ahead and did it. And I would direct these UN agencies on what to do and what they could not do. So that's leadership, that's courage. And when you're working in government, especially in the international.
I'm sorry, I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second that they wouldn't help Christians. There would be outrage. They are not telling, like, this sounds like we're not getting all of the story here, you know? I think that maybe they were only wanting to help Christians. Yeah, if that's right. That's why churches are tax free. So they can earn all their money. Why do they need more money from the government? Yeah, that's ridiculous. Maybe they were conditional because you see the USAID, I think it was an aid like organization. They would not allow, so this is what I did a bit of research about Bethany yesterday, and I went through, if you missed the beginning, I went through her. She said there was a hit piece in BuzzFeed about her. Wasn't even a picture of her. But there was conditions on receiving aid from America where they would not give aid if they thought it was going to go to organizations that did abortions. And there were women who were, trigger warnings is a bit, drastic, brutal about abortions, but there were self-imposed abortions happening because they couldn't get safe abortions. And that's what these people don't realize. People will always get abortions if they want them. They'll just do it unsafely. And they had blood on their hands as far as that was concerned, because they were actually forcing people who, could have possibly gotten an abortion safely, no longer safe. And so they were taking, big risks by doing things like that because of their Christian values that they were forcing on people who didn't have their Christian values, who live in different countries and so on and so on. That's not okay, because even in your own country, not everybody's a Christian in the same way you are. There's plenty of Christians who are pro-choice. Plenty.
Sphere where there's a lot of war, nasty things going on, you have to exercise that leadership.
So, Max, tell us what lessons our future political appointees can learn from the experiences.
I think there's 3 basic lessons that I draw from my own personal experience, and that is, you're going to be told, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. And I think all of us have had that experience. And I think the response is, you always take it with a grain of salt, and you ask for the documentation. Show me on paper where I can or where I can't. The fact of the matter is, and this is something that we all discover as we're in government, and that is that Congress has given the bureaucracy extraordinary authorities to get things done more quickly, more cheaply, more effectively. But the bureaucracy has no interest in doing that, so they just ignore it. And it's either because they don't want to do more work, or because it's risk when you do something that's new, or they simply don't want to do it. So I think that's really the first.
Do you think that they have a moral, objection to what you're suggesting, possibly? Because it's based on bigoted bullshit from an imaginary friend? From a, 100-year-old book? Could that be the issue? I'm going to actually speed them up so that we can finish this one. Oh, I haven't used this sleep timer. All right, let's keep going.
One is to understand that you need to be informed. And the second is you're informed by going to other politicals, especially those who have had prior government experience, simply because they've gone through the bureaucratic ringer. Now, for people coming in for the first time, government service is hard. It's very disorienting. It's very confusing. These rules and regulations governing contracting and the budget and all of these things are very confusing. Never stop asking questions. If it's 5 a day, if it's 10 a day, you ask those questions, right?
It's great.
And then lastly,
Good night, Lisa. Yeah, I don't think it'll probably be another 20 minutes. I'm gonna go back and watch Erin's live, which I'm looking forward to because I like a good Eric and Courtney Shortney. These Karen bitches, like they're such Karens. I cannot imagine how annoying it would be to work with these people. Like, just a nightmare.
I would say treat people with respect. Go back to my original point in that sacred trust, that bond with the American people. It's not your position. The American people, I'm an immigrant, and the American people are the most giving and kind people there is in the world. And they would want you to treat others with respect, even if
Everybody, Bethany, everybody, including trans people, gay people, people who are a different religion to you, everybody, treat them with respect.
they don't treat you with respect, or even if they don't agree with you. And after some period of time, when you show yourself to be competent and respectful, you're going to have certain folks within the bureaucracy, some who won't agree with you, but because of that, and because that they actually do subscribe to the notion that public service is beyond politics, and that even if they don't agree, they should do their job, and they're going to come out and start helping you. Because bottom line, at the end of the day, what's the outcome, the results that we're looking for? The mission, carrying out the agenda of the President of the United States.
Wrong. No. It's actually carrying out what the people of the United States want through their elected representatives. Okay? And don't tell me to treat people with respect. Oh, don't tell me, don't tell anyone to treat. When Bethany comes on here and immediately starts victimizing herself, they persecuted me with a hit piece in BuzzFeed. And she's the one using the career employees, as a slur. Like the way she says it with such venom. Ugh. Yeah, okay. That's treating them with respect? Sure. Sure.
Yes, that's great advice, Max. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We saw the impact of media bias throughout the Trump administration, and it's often difficult to navigate and counter this bias. Joining us now is Kristen, who served as Deputy Press Secretary during most of the Trump administration. Kristen, what was the craziest narrative that you saw at NASA?
Well, there's a lot of plot twists that came from the media during the Trump administration. They often took any opportunity, to be honest, to take anything out of context. In one case, specifically, they tried to make the president and the administration as a whole seem not only discoordinated, but also just unintelligent. And what I mean by that is they dissected every tweet that Trump tweeted. In one instance in particular, Trump had granted NASA one of the largest budgets they'd ever received, an increase of $1.6 billion. In an attempt to explain the greater mission of NASA, the president tweeted a phrase that said, "Mars, of which the moon is a part." The media had a field day, claiming that the president didn't realize that both Mars and the moon were separate entities in space, which certainly was not the case. And it was simply...
That's what you're going to address? That's what you're going to address? Also, it became very evident that tweets were official documents and official statements when he was the president. He made proclamations as the president, and he's not very smart. The reason why he's in hot water at the moment with the abortion issue is because he doesn't understand what he's voting for. Because there's a separate measure on the Florida budget, which is about a ban on 6-week abortions or something like that. I don't know the exact thing of it, but he was mistaking that with the like the federal ban, and he was talking about it as far as states, and he really didn't understand it. So he's not very smart. He thinks that wind power, when there's no wind, there's no power. He doesn't understand that it stores energy.
An attempt by the media to not only discredit the administration, but also all of those that had put years and years into their careers that were working for him.
That's awful. So for all the communications people out there, what is your biggest tip for survival?
I would say the greatest tip that I could give you all is be on guard and get ahead of the false narrative being pushed by the media. Political appointees should always be on their guard when it comes to messaging, or at least be.
Bethany's already said this. She already said this is like point 3 or something. Make sure that you watch what you say before you think, act, and write or whatever. It's the same thing.
Prepared for the backlash that will come with their roles in representing the president. Communication.
Why do you think that there's backlash? Could it be because you're saying bigoted things? Like Trump imposing a travel ban on Muslim countries? You know? Because that's pretty bigoted.
Is everything. It makes or breaks a narrative, and consistent messaging should be used regardless of your role and agency that you represent, because we all make up a greater team. Messaging documents and rapid response are the best ways to ensure messaging remains consistent across the administration. And during the Trump administration, we tried to do just that with weekly interagency meetings and calls. During these, communicators from different agencies would feel empowered to put forth their 2 cents and give their partner agencies an idea of what they.
Take a breath. Take a breath. Oh, she's on 1.25. I don't know. Everybody else seems to be talking a lot slower.
We're saying about particular issues, whether it be space policy or foreign aid. If you give the media an inch, they'll take a mile. And it's important to remember that they only succeed in their career when you say something that allows them to go viral. Today's media.
I don't think you understand how journalism and the media works, especially the 24-hour media cycle. They don't have to go viral. Everybody's reporting all the time. And especially when you have somebody like Trump who's tweeting nonsense all the time. Especially now AI is like a part of the conversation, you know? And there are grifters. Hello, Temple Grifter. There's grifters and the Young Turks grifters. Not everybody who's on the Young Turks is a grifter, but Jank and Anna, fuck them, transphobic idiots. Yeah, guess if they're just reporting on what you said, right? For example, when Trump tweets a picture of Kamala Harris as if she's a communist, that's not like taking it out of context. It's him accusing her of being a communist. You know, like it's about information. And also, you guys have Fox News. They've only just started fact checking the infanticide point. So tell us again how the media's against you. Like, what a pile of shit. Again, they're the victims. Oh, poor us, poor us.
Yeah, is not the same that it was 20 or even 10 years ago. So be on your guard by preparing messaging and talking points that support your agency's mission and the mission of the administration as a whole.
Kristen, these are great points. Thank you so much. I wish I would have had these when I was in the Trump administration. I felt kind of all alone. I didn't really have a lot of any direction in the media, and I was under attack constantly.
Because you're a bigot.
Or just exactly what you were saying, just staying on message, being a Trump administration appointee. What advice would you have to someone like myself who was called out? The reporters would contact me directly, called me many times, or called me out on Twitter and tried to defame me and lie about me. What?
Okay, so if they defamed you, Bethany, where's your lawsuit? Have you got one? Because that's a big claim. They defamed you. The article that I read, They said they contacted you for a comment. So how are you taken, out of context and defamed in that one? They were just reporting on things that you had said. You said those things. Like, I found a video of her saying those things. Like, they're just reporting on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The cult tactics of controlling information.
What advice do you have?
Yeah, I think that being defamed on Twitter is almost a badge of honor in the Trump administration.
Is it? Has everybody got a court case going? Because I haven't heard about any defamation. You know? Do you understand what defamation means? I don't think you do. I think you just mean when somebody responds to you.
And the unfortunate reality is that too many political appointees suffered from defamation as a result of reporting that was not entirely true. But I guess that's kind of the beauty of the First Amendment is we do have that freedom of speech. Again, messaging and sticking to your talking points is going to be important to remain on message. However, it's incredibly important for political appointees to go through media training. Most agencies actually have this option available for their staff through their Office of Communications, and this will be incredibly important for those, especially those being interviewed by the press, to go through. If I can impart a little knowledge from my own media trainings, I have a few common pitfalls that political appointees have suffered from in the past. They're just two quick ones, but never repeat the question that a reporter asks you. They intentionally want you to repeat something, and they'll phrase a question that they ask you in a way to ensure you do repeat it so that they can take a sound bite and show on Twitter that you agreed with them, even if you're just literally repeating the question. Like I said, it's manipulative and it's honestly poor journalism, but it's a tactic that they often use.
Have you got any examples? Because I'd like to see this. And people who are not afraid of being questioned don't mind showing it. Like, where's your example? Because, yeah, if someone's manipulating the news, I'd like to know about that. I want the whole context, and that's why in anti-MLM we usually play the whole training video because we don't want to be accused of being taken out of context. Do you think that the media is there just to trip you up? For an administration that's so hostile to media, can you blame them? I mean, if there's a poll that puts Donald Trump ahead, he likes that poll. If there's a poll that puts him behind, he doesn't like it. If someone says something nice about him, oh, it's good. If someone says something else about him, fake news. I don't understand. It just hurts my brain that this is what it is, like that they got through to him being elected. It's a mind fuck, honestly. I'm glad I don't have to vote for anyone in America. Voting's compulsory in Australia, and I hope that we can beat Peter Dutton, aka Voldemort. God, I cannot imagine him being Prime Minister. Oh, God.
Another piece of advice that I've learned from my own media training is when you're answering a tough question, always acknowledge it, not by repeating the question, but by saying something similar to the effect of, that's a great question, and then bridging to what you want to talk about. So for instance, someone were to ask me, why are we going to the moon instead of Mars? That's a great question. We're going to the moon because we want sustainable and reusable platform that we can use for generations to come. They wanted me to acknowledge Mars. I didn't, because I didn't fall into their pitfall.
That's great advice.
So on Fox, no, I think it was CNN. They asked Lara Trump about Donald Trump's post where he retweeted. I don't know if it's on True Social, it's called Retruth. He had a tweet that had a picture of Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, and it said both these women had blowjobs be, affect their political career. And it was in poor taste, it was misogynistic, it was disgusting, slut-shaming, sexist, and also not true. I don't like Hillary earned her spot, sort of. She sucks. I don't like Hillary. Kamala dated Willie Brown, mayor, when he was not still married. And that was a long time ago. She has done a lot of things in between then and now, and she's done it on merit, not as a DEI hire. And so he went. Somebody asked Lara Trump about it, saying, like, why did he make that? And she just said, well, I think it's ridiculous that Kamala Harris is the reason why there was murders on the border. And, like, that's just like, that's crazy and has nothing to do with what we're doing. So I don't know if that's great advice, right? Because we know what you're doing. You're not fooling anyone. And we're watching this private training video. So we know what you're going to do when you're faced with the media, But hopefully by exposing shit like this, people will get out and vote against Donald Trump. Not for anyone else, but against him.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, this is common practice used in interviews that will ensure you remain on message and aren't taken advantage of by the press.
That's fabulous. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from my friend John. John, you spent some time at the White House, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security. John, is there one piece of advice that you would like to pass on to new political appointees?
There are quite a few things I'd like to say because there's a lot to do. But if I had to pick one, I'd say it's important to remember that every single minute you're in an administration, you work for the president and have to advance his or her agenda. There are a lot of people who are going to be in your chain of command. There are very few people whose actual supervisor is the president of the United States. But I think people sometimes forget that the president runs the executive branch per Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, and you work for the president. And that means
Yeah, only the political appointees, though, not everybody else, right? So not everybody else has to follow you. And there are checks and balances, all right? You're supposed to represent all of the Americans, like the American people.
day you have to make sure you're fighting for the president's agenda. And that's whether or not someone's helping you out or standing in your way.
How is this perspective, which I agree is vital, helpful when you're in there trying to serve the
Also, we've already had this tip. This is like the same tip over and over again. Like, know the president's agenda and go through with it. That's what it already was.
president?
Well, that's a good question, Bethany. I would say there are two main reasons why that's important. One is it helps you focus because there are a lot of distractions. Every day in service is very busy. There's a lot going on. There's fun stuff. But there's also this need to remember that you are working for a president and his agenda. And so that you have to fight every minute to make sure that the right thing happens on a daily basis because time is also short. But I think another thing I would say, Bethany, is it's also it helps you be a little bit creative. In a world where there's no resistance, people get a little bit lazy. But when you have to get through the bureaucracy and solve problems, creativity is going to be essential to achieving your goals.
John, can you give any examples of how you ensured that the president's policies were followed in the face of resistance?
Well, I can give one general example of what we did whenever we had these issues. So there was a device that we would use called a Policy Coordination Committee, or the PCC. And what that basically means is in a situation where there were disputes among agencies, we would all convene and try and basically work out. There were a lot of times, unfortunately, when agencies were either slow or resistant or sometimes just downright hostile to the president's agenda, including from the cabinet level. So what you had to do in those instances, you had to put everyone in the room and basically force a result. Now, sometimes just the pressure from the White House being in the room ironed out the differences, but sometimes not. And if you didn't get a resolution by the time it got to cabinet level officials, you at least were comforted that it got to the president's desk and then it was up to the president to make the final decision. So I always took solace in knowing that if we did that, we were doing our job.
That wraps up our 10 tips for survival. To recap, here they are again. Know the president's policy positions. Think before you speak, write, or act. Learn the lingo. Learn how to navigate your department, your agency, and the culture of the federal government. Connect with political appointees in your agency and across the administration. Know the Hill and build collaborative relationships. Partner with civil society organizations. Do not let career bureaucrats hinder you from advancing the president's agenda. Be on guard and get ahead of the false narrative being pushed by the media. Always support the president and work to advance his agenda. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that you've been able to learn from our experiences so that you will be better prepared on day one as a political appointee, and that you will not only survive, but thrive.
She still had her anger articles in there. God. Yeah, August, I just want to point out that Trump followers like to say that Project 2025 is not attached to Trump, yet they talk a lot about him and upholding his policies. They sure do. Because one is like, she talks like she just put on a human suit and is having a hard time with all those extra face parts. Yeah, and I saw this one too, and it made me like, I didn't know if I was going to cover any more of the videos, but I wanted to after seeing this. It's a little discouraging that these don't have many views. Everyone needs to tell their friends the videos are here, comment, play the whole thing, even if you can barely stand listening. Do what you can to boost the algorithm. The written part of Project 2025 is really bad, but listening to these people makes my skin crawl. Everyone needs to see what these pod people have planned for the rest of us. Absolutely. And that's what inspired me to do that. Yeah, and they are outing themselves. Yes, that's it. 5 minutes in, and this woman's thin-veiled bitterness is too much for me to watch. I hear a sense of victimhood. She seems to believe this misinformation that she's helping to propagate. I think so too. Oh, yes. It is like Scientology. We can also accomplish a lot by remembering how to treat people. Being humble and kind is really a powerful ploy, and by the way, the right thing to do. Just when I thought they were demonstrating some empathy. Exactly. It's like, that's what I said too. The ploy. It's a ploy. Ooh. I was raised in high control religion, and our training videos had the same vibe. I've seen this before. No thanks. Yeah. I find your lack of eyebrows just Do you know who I don't like the most? Is there a picture of him? I was hoping he had a video. Stephen Miller. He's the worst one. He's the worst one. My God. All right. Well, that's it. We did another one. I might come back next Thursday and do another one, having a bit of a political Thursday. Well, Wednesday night for you Americans. Are we roasting? Yeah, it is roast week. Okay. I gotta edit the podcast as well. So yeah, we're a bit behind on the podcast. But yeah, roasting on Sunday. It's bingo. Anti-MLM bingo. If we've got any people who are not regular viewers of mine who are watching this, hi, how you doing? And yeah, thanks for sticking around, August. Yeah, and anti-MLM bingo. We watch some boss babes and boss bros, and we've got a whole lot of bingo and the bingo dance. It's epic when someone gets a bingo. We love it. Yeah. With my besties, the Clown Town, amazing people, love them to death. All right. I will see everybody next time. And yeah, thanks for being here. All right. Am I now? Do.